Welcome back, everyone. Today's story is a must-hear for anyone who loves a good undercover CEO twist. Imagine building a successful company only to realize that behind the numbers, things are falling apart. That's exactly what happens when a CEO goes undercover as a trainee in his own store. What he discovers will shock you. From neglectful management to unsung heroes holding the business together, this journey is filled with eye-opening moments, tough decisions, and a powerful lesson in leadership. Stay tuned because this story will make you rethink what it truly means to run a business. Lucas Whitman had built HomeFix Superstores from the ground up. What started as a single small hardware shop had grown into a regional chain of home improvement stores, with dozens of locations across multiple cities. In the early days, he had been on the floor himself, helping customers, restocking shelves, and learning the ins and outs of the business firsthand. But over the years, as the company expanded, his role shifted to boardrooms, financial reports, and investor meetings. Lately, though, those reports had been raising red flags. Customer complaints were piling up, citing long wait times, unhelpful staff, and poor store conditions. Employee turnover had skyrocketed, with more resignations than ever before. Worst of all, sales had stagnated, and Lucas couldn't understand why. On paper, everything should have been working. His stores were well stocked, his managers were trained, and yet something was missing. Feeling frustrated and disconnected, Lucas made a bold decision. He would go undercover as a trainee employee in one of his underperforming stores to see the issues firsthand. With the help of a professional makeup artist, Lucas transformed into Ben Carter, a middle-aged man with graying hair, glasses, and a slight limp. His team had only ever seen him in corporate emails and magazine interviews, so he doubted anyone would recognize him. After forging a fake resume with basic retail experience, he applied for an entry-level sales associate position at one of his struggling stores on the city's outskirts. He didn't tell his executives, district managers, or even his assistant. No one could know. If something was broken in his company, he needed to see it for himself. And if he found the root of the problem, he was prepared to fix it at any cost. The moment Lucas, now Ben, stepped through the automatic doors of HomeFix Superstore 27, he felt the difference. Instead of the organized, customer-friendly experience he had envisioned for his stores, he was met with dim flickering lights, half-stocked shelves, and aisles cluttered with misplaced items. A leaking air conditioning vent near the entrance had left a wet floor, a sign abandoned in the middle of the walkway. He had seen pictures and reports about store maintenance issues, but seeing it firsthand was different. It was more than just disorganization. It felt neglected. Lucas made his way to the customer service counter, where a tired-looking employee, Daniel, barely glanced up from his screen. "Here for a return?" he asked monotonously. "Actually, I'm here to apply for the sales trainee position," Lucas said, holding up a crumpled hiring flyer he had spotted taped to the entrance door. Daniel sighed and gestured toward a stocky man in a wrinkled polo shirt leaning against a nearby counter, scrolling on his phone. "That's Trevor, our store manager. He does the hiring." Trevor barely looked at Lucas when he approached. "You're hired," he muttered after skimming the application for a few seconds. "Can you start today?" Lucas hesitated. No interview, no discussion, not even a single question about his experience. This was far from the professional hiring process he had expected from his managers. Sure," Lucas replied, keeping his cover. Trevor tossed him a wrinkled company vest. "Emily will show you around," he said, already turning back to his phone. Emily, a young, sharp-eyed employee with an easy smile, greeted him warmly. "Welcome to the team, Ben. Let me show you the ropes," she said, handing him a pricing scanner. As she guided him through the store, Lucas noticed a stark contrast between her enthusiasm and the store's crumbling operations. She genuinely cared about helping customers, explaining products, and ensuring the store looked presentable despite having no managerial support. As they walked past the aisles, he observed frustrated customers looking for assistance, employees rushing to cover multiple departments, and the lack of a clear system in place. While Lucas had expected some operational inefficiencies, the reality was worse than he imagined. Employees seemed overwhelmed, customers looked dissatisfied, and the manager was nowhere to be found. Lucas had entered the store hoping to uncover issues, but within his first hour it was already obvious this wasn't just a struggling location, it was a store on the verge of collapse. It didn't take long for Lucas to see that Trevor's incompetence was at the root of the store's problems. As Lucas shadowed Emily, he noticed that most employees were left to fend for themselves, juggling multiple roles without any clear direction. Customers wandered the aisles, looking frustrated as they tried to find help, and when they finally found an employee, that person was often too overwhelmed to provide real assistance. The checkout lines stretched long, but instead of stepping in to help, Trevor remained in his office or stood near the entrance, glued to his phone. Lucas even overheard a customer complaining about a missing product in the plumbing section. When an employee asked Trevor if they should check the stockroom, Trevor waved a hand dismissively and said, "If it's not on the shelf, tell them to order it online." Lucas soon realized that training was virtually non-existent. When a customer approached a new stock worker, Jamie, to ask about a particular drill set, Jamie looked helpless. "I think it's somewhere near aisle 5, he guessed, clearly uncertain. When Lucas asked if he had received proper product training, Jamie shook his head. "Trevor just told me to figure it out as I go," he admitted. Lucas clenched his jaw. How could a store function properly if employees weren't even trained on their own products? Even worse, Trevor showed zero interest in supporting his team. When a customer at checkout grew agitated over a pricing error, Emily tried her best to calm him down, explaining that she could match the correct price. The situation escalated, and instead of stepping in, Trevor rolled his eyes from across the store and muttered, "Handle it," before walking away. Emily did manage to smooth things over, but Lucas could see the exhaustion in her expression. After the customer left, she sighed, shaking her head. "This happens all the time," she said quietly. "Trevor never deals with customer issues. He just hides in the office until we figure it out ourselves." By the end of his first full shift, Lucas felt a pit in his stomach. This wasn't just a struggling store, it was a failing system. Employees were overworked and unsupported, the store was a mess, and Trevor's mismanagement had created a toxic, indifferent workplace. If Lucas had any doubts before, they were gone now. Trevor was unfit to lead, and Lucas knew it was only a matter of time before he would have to do something about it. Despite the store's dysfunction, Lucas soon realized that not all hope was lost. Some employees, despite the lack of leadership, still genuinely cared about their work. He saw it firsthand when a frail elderly man struggled to carry a heavy toolbox toward the checkout. Without hesitation, Emily rushed over, lifting the box for him and guiding him to the register. "Let me help you with that," she said with a reassuring smile. She even took the time to explain a discount he could apply for, making sure he got the best deal possible. The man thanked her profusely, calling her a blessing. Lucas noted how effortlessly she went above and beyond, despite being overworked. Later, as he continued stocking shelves, Lucas observed Jordan, another floor employee, stepping in when a fellow co-worker, Nina, suddenly needed to leave. Nina had just gotten a frantic call. Her child had a high fever and she had no choice but to leave early. She looked anxious as she approached Trevor, who barely looked up from his phone. "Figure it out," he muttered. Without missing a beat, Jordan offered to cover her shift even though he was already on his 7th hour of work. "I've got it, don't worry," he reassured her. Lucas saw the relief on Nina's face, and at that moment, he knew. The employees here weren't the problem. It was the management failing them. But what really struck Lucas was what happened at the checkout later that afternoon. A young mother with a toddler came through the register, placing a handful of home repair supplies on the counter. As Emily rang up the total, the woman's face fell. She nervously rummaged through her purse, coming up short. Her hands trembled as she counted out loose bills and coins. I don't have enough," she whispered, looking embarrassed. "Can you take off the sealant and the screwdriver?" Lucas watched as Emily hesitated for only a moment before quietly slipping a bill from her own pocket and covering the difference. "Don't worry about it," she said gently, giving the woman a reassuring smile. The woman's eyes welled up with tears. I don't even know what to say," she stammered. "Just pay it forward someday," Emily replied with a shrug, before bagging the items and handing them over. Lucas felt a lump rise in his throat. Here was an employee, underpaid and overworked yet, still willing to sacrifice her own money to help a customer in need. He couldn't understand how someone like Emily could continue to thrive in a store that was falling apart in every other way. That moment confirmed what he already suspected. There were good people here, but they were being set up to fail. After witnessing the dedication of employees like Emily and Jordan, Lucas decided to test the store's management to see just how deep the problems ran. He started with a simple question to Trevor while they were near the paint section. "Hey, I notice we're low on some popular colors. Should I check the stockroom and restock them?" Trevor barely looked up from his phone and waved a dismissive hand. "Nah, if customers ask, just tell them to check online or come back later." Lucas fought the urge to frown. A store manager who didn't even care about keeping products on the shelves? That was beyond lazy. It was costing the business sales. Next, Lucas approached a frustrated customer who had been standing by the lumber section for over 10 minutes. "Excuse me, do you work here?" the man asked, irritation clear in his voice. "I need help cutting this wood to size, but no one is at the station." Lucas had noticed this issue earlier. The cutting station was abandoned, and the one employee trained to use it was busy unloading a shipment with no backup. "Let me find someone for you," Lucas offered. He walked over to Trevor, who was now chatting with a friend near the store entrance. "Hey, a customer needs help with wood cutting, but no one's available. Should I?" Trevor sighed dramatically, as if being asked to do his job was an inconvenience. "Just tell him we're short-staffed and he'll have to wait, or suggest he try a different store." Lucas gritted his teeth. Was this how all customer issues were handled? No wonder complaints had been increasing. Later, during his break, Lucas decided to ask Emily a direct question. "So, does Trevor ever step in when things get busy?" She let out a small, humorless laugh. "Only if a corporation is visiting. Otherwise he hides in the office, lets us deal with everything, and takes credit when things go well." Lucas felt his stomach tighten. Trevor wasn't just incompetent, he was actively making the store worse. Employees like Emily were working themselves to exhaustion while he did the bare minimum to collect a paycheck. Lucas had come to observe, but now he was certain this wasn't just bad management. It was a failure of leadership, and if something didn't change soon, the store would crumble entirely. Lucas had already seen enough to know that Trevor was a disaster as a manager, but what happened next cemented his decision to take action. It was late afternoon and the store was busier than usual, with long lines at the registers and customers roaming the aisles, clearly frustrated at the lack of available staff. Lucas was shadowing Emily at the checkout when a tall, red-faced man stormed up to the counter, gripping a receipt. "This is ridiculous," he barked, slamming it down. "You overcharged me for these screws. The sign said they were on sale." Emily, visibly exhausted but still keeping her composure, picked up the receipt and scanned the system. "Sir, I see the discount wasn't applied. I can fix that for you right now," she said calmly. But the man wasn't satisfied. "This is exactly why I hate shopping here," he continued, raising his voice so that nearby customers turned to watch. "You people never know what you're doing." Lucas instinctively looked toward Trevor's office, expecting the manager to step in. Nothing. Trevor was nowhere to be seen. Emily, still keeping her voice even, tried to diffuse the situation, apologizing again and adjusting the price. But it wasn't enough for the man, who scoffed loudly. "Next time, I'll take my business somewhere that actually hires competent people." He grabbed his bag and stormed out. As soon as he was gone, Emily exhaled shakily, rubbing her temples. Lucas saw her hands trembling slightly, but she quickly forced a smile for the next customer in line. "Sorry about that," she said, as if this was just another part of the job. Lucas was done watching this happen. He excused himself from the register and made his way to Trevor's office. The door was slightly ajar, and inside Trevor was leaning back in his chair, scrolling on his phone, sipping soda like nothing had happened. Lucas knocked sharply. "Hey! That customer just blew up at Emily at checkout," he said, testing him one last time. Trevor barely looked up. "Yeah? She handled it, didn't she?" Lucas's fists clenched at the sheer indifference in his tone. "She shouldn't have had to handle it alone," Lucas replied evenly. Trevor simply shrugged. "Welcome to retail, newbie. It's part of the job. She'll get over it." That was it. Lucas turned and walked out, but in his mind he had already made his decision. Trevor's time as manager was over. Tomorrow, everything will change. The next morning, Lucas arrived at HomeFix Superstore 27, not as Ben, the trainee, but as himself. Lucas Whitman, CEO. Dressed in his usual crisp button-down and slacks, he walked through the automatic doors with a purpose, his jaw set. Employees were already buzzing around, preparing for the day, But as soon as they spotted him, the energy in the store shifted. Emily froze mid-tack, eyes widening in recognition. Daniel at the customer service desk nearly dropped his clipboard. Jamie, the stock boy, muttered a stunned, "No way." But the best reaction came from Trevor. He was loitering near the entrance, coffee in hand, chatting with another employee when he finally noticed Lucas. His entire posture stiffened. He blinked, processing what he was seeing, then quickly straightened his shirt and plastered on a nervous smile. "Mr. Whitman, what a surprise! We weren't expecting you today." Lucas didn't return the smile. Instead, he glanced around the store, the cluttered aisles, the exhausted employees, the checkout line already forming with no support staff in sight, and then locked eyes with Trevor. "I'm sure you weren't," he said coolly. "Gather the staff. We're having a meeting. Now." Trevor swallowed hard but nodded, scurrying off to round up the employees. Within minutes, everyone was assembled near the registers looking anxious. Emily, standing toward the front, shifted uncomfortably but held her head high. Maya, the customer service rep, wrung her hands, clearly worried about what was coming next. The silence was thick with tension as Lucas stepped forward. "For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lucas Whitman, the owner and CEO of this company," he announced, his voice steady but sharp. "For the past few days, I've been working here, undercover as Ben, a trainee. I did this because I needed to see for myself what was happening in my stores." Gasps rippled through the group. Lucas turned his gaze directly to Trevor, his expression unreadable. "And what I saw was unacceptable." Trevor's nervous smile vanished. "Sir, Lucas raised a hand, cutting him off. "I saw dedicated employees like Emily and Jordan going above and beyond to help customers. I saw understaffed departments, poor training, and a team doing their best with no support. And I saw you, Trevor, ignoring problems, refusing to help, and failing as a leader." Trevor opened his mouth to protest, but Lucas didn't give him the chance. "You're fired, effective immediately." The moment Lucas fired Trevor, a stunned silence fell over the group. For a few seconds, nobody moved, as if they weren't sure they had heard correctly. Then a few employees exchanged glances, and Lucas could almost feel the wave of relief wash over them. Trevor, on the other hand, looked pale and furious, his mouth opening and closing as if searching for an argument. "You can't just," he started, but Lucas didn't waver. "I can, and I have," he said firmly. "Your lack of leadership has hurt this store and the people in it. I won't allow it to continue." Trevor gritted his teeth before snatching his coffee off the counter and storming toward the exit. The second he disappeared through the doors, the tension in the room visibly lifted. Lucas turned back to the employees, softening his tone. "Now, let's talk about how we move forward." He shifted his gaze to Emily, who had been standing quietly, processing everything. "Emily, you've been holding this store together despite impossible conditions. You've shown leadership, compassion, and dedication that this company desperately needs." He paused for a beat, letting his words sink in before continuing. "I'm promoting you to assistant store manager, effective immediately." Emily's eyes widened in shock, and for the first time she looked genuinely speechless. "Wait, what?" she stammered. Lucas nodded firmly. "You deserve it. You already act like a leader. Now it's time you're recognized as one." A few employees clapped, and Emily blinked rapidly, as if holding back tears. "Thank you," she finally whispered. "I won't let you down." Lucas continued, "Maya, Jordan, and the rest of you, I see how hard you work. This store has been running on dedicated employees, not management. That changes today. We're hiring more staff, implementing proper training, and ensuring that when you go above and beyond, it's recognized and rewarded." He glanced at Olivia, his regional manager, who had arrived to oversee the transition. "Olivia will be helping with these changes, and I'll personally check in to make sure things improve." For the first time since he stepped in, Lucas saw something new in his employees' faces: hope. Things weren't perfect yet, but they were finally heading in the right direction. As the meeting ended and the employees returned to their stations, Lucas took a moment to step back and observe. The atmosphere in the store had already shifted. Where there had been tension and exhaustion, there was now a cautious sense of optimism. Employees who had spent months feeling ignored and overworked now had something they hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Emily stood a little taller, Maya looked more confident, and even Jamie, the young stock worker, seemed more at ease. The store wasn't perfect, and the problems weren't all solved overnight, but this was the first step toward something better. Lucas exhaled, feeling the weight of responsibility settle back on his shoulders, but this time it wasn't the distant responsibility of a CEO who only saw numbers on a report. It was real, tangible, and personal. For too long he had trusted the wrong people to lead his stores, assuming everything was running smoothly just because the financials looked stable. But numbers didn't tell the whole story, not the way a single shift in the store could. Turning to Olivia, his regional manager, Lucas lowered his voice. I want regular updates on this location, and I want our other stores evaluated the same way. If this was happening here, it's probably happening elsewhere. Olivia nodded in agreement, already making notes. Consider it done, she said. Before leaving, Lucas sought out Emily one last time. She was busy adjusting a display near the registers, but turned when she saw him approaching. I just wanted to say thank you, he said sincerely, for everything. This store wouldn't have survived without you. Emily gave him a small, genuine smile. Thank you for actually seeing us, Mr. Whitman. That's all we ever wanted. As Lucas walked out of the store, he felt lighter. This experience had opened his eyes to the reality behind the corporate reports, the struggles, the frustrations, but also the incredible resilience of the people who worked for him. He had nearly lost sight of the heart of his business, but now he understood. His employees weren't just numbers. They were the foundation of his company, and it was his job to protect them. And from this day forward, he would make sure that he never forgot that again. The story of Lucas Whitman highlights a powerful lesson about leadership, accountability, and the value of frontline employees. As a CEO, Lucas had become disconnected from the everyday struggles of his workforce, relying too heavily on reports and financial data to gauge the health of his company. By going undercover, he saw firsthand that numbers don't tell the whole story. Employees were overworked, customers were frustrated, and poor management had created a toxic work environment. One of the biggest takeaways is that leadership isn't just about making decisions from the top. It's about staying connected to the people who keep the business running. Lucas learned that bad management can destroy morale, while strong, dedicated employees like Emily and Jordan can hold a business together even under terrible conditions. However, dedication alone isn't enough. Employees need support, recognition, and proper leadership to truly thrive. This story is a reminder that success isn't just about profit margins. It's about people. Great leaders listen, observe, and take action when they see problems. Lucas's experience changed his approach to leadership, proving that a company is only as strong as the people who work for it, and it's a leader's duty to ensure they are valued and supported.